without limits or judgment. A place for you and people like you to tell your most effed up stories. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Effed Up Stories. I am your host, Will Pender.
And I am your co-host, Ryan Sharp.
And tonight we have a special guest who has submitted some of my favorite stories to the website. And I know not everybody goes to the website. A lot of people just like to listen and lay back. And so for those of you who haven't heard these stories, you're in for a treat. Before we get into that, though, I'd just like to point out that if you have any paranormal stories or videos or pictures or what have you, we want them. So get onto our official website, www.effedupstories.com. That's EFFEDUPSTORIES.com. Go to submissions, fill out the form, get it to us. It'll get on the website and possibly get you in one of our podcasts. And without further ado, please welcome Terry Acosta.
Hi, all. Thank you for asking me to be on your show. And boy, do I had an interesting, story to tell and stuff. And a lot of them, most of them are from my family, and others from my close friends and stuff. And it's really, really awesome.
They are they're fantastical stories, and I want to start. If we could start, because we don't get a lot of stuff on Bigfoot, and we have a lot of people ask us, to do something on Bigfoot. And you had a really interesting one that is different from most of the ones that I hear. A little more grisly.
Oh yeah. And I've been I talked to other people with Bigfoot stories, and they done told me before they'll try to get the other people to. To go for the stories and stuff, and this was it's a pretty gruesome story and a very unusual Bigfoot activity. This is called other Bigfoot researchers call this the wayward Bigfoot because the way he is extremely hostile in his story.
Yes, so I mean this story started when your mom was a teenager and she worked on a cranberry ranch.
Yeah, it was up in Colorado, and but at the time, the family was back in the day, if you weren't white or all white, so she was half Native American and half Spanish, so they had to go migrate from Texas all over the United States, and basically she'd been in like 48 states. So, and doing all these odd jobs and stuff, they go into this labor camp, and typical labor camp and stuff, and pretty much nothing happened for a while. Then my great grandfather, who's a Apache Comanche, likes to go and visit the other natives around the area, and they tell him a warning that there's this really hostile Bigfoot that lives in the area, very unusual, and they'd be wary of him, and basically tell they have any females in your family to keep an eye on them. This Bigfoot is very, very attracted to women, but also known to kill human women.
Yeah, I believe that there was a story before she had her encounter, that a few years earlier that a native woman had been killed by a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so she had, first it was an encounter with a grizzly bear.
Yes, my mother loved to go fishing, and she has a dog with her, and she goes far away from the camp, and she goes fishing and stuff. Then she gets this the first encounter out there, which first time fishing, she gets attacked by a grizzly bear, starts chasing her and stuff. So she learned the second time to be more cautious. And the second time, she kept the dog away a little bit. The dog would cause the first grizzly bear to come chase her, and while she learned to keep the stupid dog from barking, all these grizzly bears are at a distance, and they all get up and they smell something that they don't like, and they start charging at her direction, and she's totally shocked and feared that she had no time to run, like last time. But these bears just blow right past her, totally ignoring her, and she's like, uh-oh, that's a bad sign when a whole herd of grizzly bears just run past you. And then the dog started acting funny, and at a distance she started hearing a weird, unusual growl. And she figured out that there's something really nasty hidden in the woods. So she went back to the cabin, and of course, try to tell her father, my grandfather, that there's something out there, but no one believes her.
And there was
my great grandpa. Yeah?
There was a strong odor that she smelled as well, like a really foul odor.
Yeah. Then, but she never, this is the first time she really encountered any kind of like a Bigfoot activity. And there's unusual smell, and she's been worked in a lot of places, and this smell was nothing she ever smelled before. But what got her the most was that growl. She'd been traveling, seeing a lot of animals and a lot of stuff, and this was something that she never heard before. And it's like, and the thought in her head is, there's some monster in the woods over there. So she run home again, try to tell the family there's something out there, and of course no one believes her.
And this happened like 40 years ago, so this would have been around the 70s. So, she has this experience. She runs home, and of course she was young. She was like a teenager, so she didn't work while in the other cabins. All the adults were working, so she was often the only one home in these cabins during the day.
Well, the reason, she chose work in the time, her time, the immigrants used to work. She started working full-time at 8 years old. But the reason she wasn't working because she had Bass strep infection in her throat.
Oh, okay.
And they removed her tonsils.
Okay.
So she wasn't really able to work because her mouth was still being swollen from the surgery and stuff. Back in the day, it was pretty bad. They cut stuff out. So she was really, yeah.
So she, and this is one of the parts that I found interesting. Back during the day when she was home by herself, she heard what sounded like chains dragging, and it sounded like something was dragging these chains and smacking the different cabins as it was walking by.
Yeah, and this was during the daytime, not nighttime at all. So this Bigfoot had learned that nearly everybody at the campsite or the migrant campsite was not home. So it was checking out which building had any kind of inhabitants. It was figuring out what time and weakness of each cabin. It was planning something for what happened later on. And of course, the mother was really quiet, and she knew this thing was doing that. And she tried to tell people. Again, nobody won't believe her. To later on.
Well, what about your mother's sister Betsy? She had a dog.
Yeah, her one of her older sisters had a little dog that Betsy had found and kept by the barker, and the dog the Bigfoot decided the dog was a threat to its plan. So this Bigfoot did not just like crush the dog. He used the dog as target practice with this huge chain, and basically he sliced the dog up with a chain.
So when
yeah.
So when they found the dog, it was beaten to a bloody pulp, I believe, is the description you gave it.
Well, pretty much. How my other aunt said, it was pretty much just decimated. It was like the sheer force of the dog was just throwing pieces everywhere, like in a horror movie. It's like chopped up and thrown all over the yard. And they can see the impact marks in the ground. So
Wow.
It wasn't that only cut it up. The chain went right to the dog, and he has chopped the dog up with a chain.
That does sound pretty brutal.
Do that. Yeah.
I got to say that's a pretty interesting point there. I can't say I hear too many Bigfoot stories where the Bigfoot is wielding a weapon, and the few that you do hear, generally it's a club of some sort, a large piece of wood or something like that, or throwing rocks. But I can genuinely say it's the first time I've seen a story that detailed a Bigfoot wielding a weapon, especially a man-made object like a chain. But
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, this Bigfoot was extremely hostile, but also very smart. But it wasn't almost literally not afraid of humans at all. Like I think that the night before, there's a huge incident. But my mother, my oldest, my uncle, and basically all the girls, all the my aunts and stuff. There were a lot of them, 8 of them at the time, I believe. And a couple of the girls and his buddies went to the movies in his old pickup. So on the way back, the pickup breaks down. So these guys decided, it's a couple miles back to the cabins, so they're walking. It's open plain, so they're walking back to the cabins, and they realize they're in the wrong part of the land where there's a really nasty bull that lives over there, very territorial. So they told everybody to get really quiet and walk and not get the bull's attention. So they're almost home, and they hear the bull making a kind of racket, and they kind of follow the noise, and they see the bull attacking the Bigfoot right open plain, and this Bigfoot just grabs this huge steer, and he breaks his neck literally with this one swoop. Then he turns around and looks at the group of people. Now, I think of the story, the Bigfoot will run away, but this Bigfoot decides to walk forward. He's walking straight to the group of people, and my uncle, he got the guys made a line with their knives, pocket knives and stuff, until he goes run back to the cabin screaming as loud as you can, so we can get more help. And these guys make a line walking backwards with this Bigfoot walking at him, and the girl screaming got hold of the rancher, which the rancher's already been wary of this Bigfoot already, been attacking livestock and attacking the crops, and so he's really got a little posse hanging out by his house. So he hears the women screaming, and he comes and starts coming in with all his guys, and this Bigfoot decides he can't tangle with all these people, so he decides to walk back into the woods he can find by the field.
So now, after the group had made it back, the Bigfoot, the Bigfoot, that's when he finally decides to just go on back into the woods. But some nights later, all the men were congregated into one cabin. They were drinking, playing cards, and that sort of thing. And all the women were in another cabin. And Bigfoot comes back.
Yeah, and it's funny. Yeah, and that night, the mom said that it was kind of eerie because they felt the calm before the storm. They felt that there was something about to happen, and her great grandmother was there, and she was acting all calm, but she had a serious look on her face, like she knew what was going to happen, and the eeriness coming. And she said, "Get ready for something bad." So the cabin that got attacked was basically all my mother and her sisters were in that cabin. The bulk of the females were in that cabin, and all of a sudden they when they were talking, and then they heard the door just starts crackling, and my aunt Betsy she's furious after the dog being killed, is by the door with her baseball bat, and mom, funny because I have a couple my aunts and stuff telling me different versions of it, but a couple of my aunts jump underneath the bed, and they saw when the cabin door is disintegrated, and they see this huge feet come into the cabin door, and my aunt Betsy, waits to the door is like 6 feet tall. When the door gets smashed down, it's like right by the nipple area of the Bigfoot. He had to bend down to stick his head into the cabin. This is when my aunt Betsy got to get her baseball bat and smashes it on his face, and he looks at her like, "What are you doing?" And then when my mother sees him clear as day, almost face to face, only a couple of feet, and she said his face is not like a gorilla. It's like really almost like a Native American face. Thin nose, the high cheeks, almost looking at a man, but gigantic. And that's when the older sister and the great grandmother just had like little shovels, and they threw the coal right on the chest and the general areas of the Bigfoot, which catch on fire. And these things screamed so loud that it heard miles away, where the posse was still looking for him on another part of the area, and they realized they're attacking the cabin. He was attacking the cabin, and the men who were playing poker in the bigger main cabin try to open the front door, and there's a huge boulder blocking the door, and they're like, they have no, and the windows are too small for the guys to rush out and try to jump out, and so the Bigfoot's on fire, and my grandfather, who's sleeping next to the next cabin, gets out and he pulls out his 6-shooter and almost point blank range shoots the Bigfoot, but again it's like shooting BBs at it. It was running down the mountain on fire, smoking, and that's when the posse kind of sees it, and they chase it into the mountains, and then that night everybody packed up the stuff and left.
So did they ever hear anything after about Bigfoot returning to the the village, or?
No, the only thing they heard was later on was that the posse had chased it deep in the mountains, and the dogs that were chasing it got up to it, but it wiped the dogs out, and up there in the mountains started snowing, so they couldn't really go further deep chasing this guy. So nothing really, and that's basically how the story ended, because nothing came out or anything new about him. We don't know if he survived the burning or decided not to hang around the town anymore.
Well, a couple of the things that I found interesting is, again, like, the fact that he wasn't scared of humans. I mean, he made it kind of his business to go in there, and he was smart. Like you said, I mean, he placed that rock in front of the cabin with the men in it, because he knew that they would come out and try to stop what he was doing. So there was a lot of interesting things, and the fact that his face looked Native American rather than what most would picture would be like a gorilla-like face. And it kind of reminds me of those stories of giants, that they have found bones of what seem to be giants. Yeah,
and the sad part is the mother actually has hair samples. When Betsy was hitting them, some of the hair got caught in the bat, and she kept it for years, but it got destroyed when another incident just got all the evidence got destroyed. But she had it for like 10, 20 years of the hair. So I was like, my mother, like, oh my God, like she wished she could back then find someone that actually can get it, and the evidence right there of the Bigfoot right there.
Yeah,
it was interesting because amongst regular wildlife, every now and then we run into a situation with bears. I know in particular where you get bears that are referred to sometimes as rogue bears, and typically for anyone who's spent any amount of time in the woods, a bear will. If you walk up into a clearing and there's a bear or even a couple of bears, generally they will leave the area. Not, if you startle them, you might get some kind of a posture, but generally they just pick up and leave. Most of the time, they're gone before you even know they're there. All you smell is the pungent odor of a large animal. Again, any large animal in the woods, if you've come across an area where an animal has been bed down for a long period of time, or has just been, there's always a strong odor, and that's something that's always attributed to Bigfoot or Sasquatch. But I wonder if that's what we have here is a case of a rogue Bigfoot, where you have, like with a rogue bear, it's no longer frightened of people. It will go out of its way to attack them. It's very there's in the Bigfoot lore. There's really only a few cases that can really be attributed to a Bigfoot as the classic profile of a Bigfoot creature. But it's funny because the few cases that you do hear about usually surround work camps that are kind of way out on the edge of civilization, almost like a frontier situation, where you have a very low population density, but this group of people and all the noise and smells and resources that people bring with them. So it kind of makes sense if you got this kind of this wide open wild range and a group of people kind of congregating in one area away from everyone else, and then you have this very curious, aggressive, fearless Bigfoot who, unlike the typical Sasquatch encounters, will come right up into the camp. But the planning, the level of planning that seems to have gone into this, putting the boulder in front of the door, it really underlies the humanness of their thinking process. I think that's probably what both draws people to the Bigfoot phenomenon and terrifies them so much, is that here we have a large animal-like creature who obviously has a human-like or very near human-like intelligence. That's a terrifying prospect. An 8 foot tall or 7 to 9 foot tall, powerfully built creature that can snap the neck of a bull with a foul swoop,
and yet have
lurking
some kind
around,
and yet be intelligent, right?
Exactly, and it's lurking around the forest, dragging a massive chain. It really does paint a pretty terrifying picture.
It does, and that's just one of the stories, because that's the thing, is that we Terry has submitted several stories that are fantastical to me. They're really good. So I want to jump to the next one that I really liked, and of course we have it titled Dweller of the Sand Dunes. So this took place 30 to 35 years ago around Amarillo, I believe it was, in Texas.
Yeah, somewhere. The location is kind of hard, but a lot of these stories were told to me when I was younger than when my mother got her couple of her strokes in '04. It was like I'm trying to get more details from her. I should have done this like 20-some years ago. But it's somewhere in Texas, but close to Amarillo, where there's the farming area. Again, I do is farming. A lot of migrant workers stuff hang out in the areas. This now, of course, my grandfather always looking for work. He gets this he finds a job at this another ranch, of course. And the owner has a beautiful 3-story house that it hasn't had public water and stuff like that. It's an old-fashioned house, but beautiful. My mother said, and so he gives them bring your family here. The house is rent-free, and you can work. Help me work this stuff, the fields and stuff. My grandfather really was good. It was labor and stuff, and know what he was doing. So the first day, my aunt Betsy and my mother are wandering around this new area, and they see these sand dunes. And it's odd to see this in like this weird terrain, and by these farms. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Maybe somehow the ground has been destroyed or been dug up real bad that no plant life is growing there. So they're wandering around and they see the coyotes or like wolves or something like that. There's a hidden hole in the ground, and they see puppies and you see I think coyotes sticking heads out, looking out. And it's like, oh, and my aunt likes wildlife, and she's go get her father, my grandfather, to show the animals. Well, he was busy today, so the next day he went to look at these coyote den, and all these coyotes and the puppies are all dead. Like somebody's ripped them all apart. They're like, and it's like again for another bad omen. Like something's not right here.
And it was it appeared that it was done with a creature that had large claws.
Yeah, something very big and not afraid of a pack of coyotes. Very dangerous. Again, being Native American stuff, that's like another bad sign. There's something not natural in the area.
Yeah, and of course, shortly after this, your grandfather, he went to sleep, but he had like a precognitive dream, like a warning.
Yeah, it was like he was woken up in his bed and he saw like a little child, almost like a cherub from the paintings, and it's telling him to get your family out of the house. Now your family's in danger. And he wakes up and like, oh, it's a bad dream, and he had to go. Then he really had to go to the bathroom, which is outside in the outhouse. Okay, and so he wandered. This is the middle of the night, and it's full moon, and he's wandering up to the bathroom, and he goes to the house, closes the door, and he sits, and he's looking through the cracks of the outhouse, and he sees something standing on one of the dunes, and he's like. And you see the red eyes glaring, and he's like, "Oh my God, there's something unnatural over there." He's like, "Oh crap!" And it wasn't just a dream; it was a warning. But then he gets up, and goes back to the house. And he doesn't run, doesn't act scared or nothing. Calm face. He goes back to the house, and he's telling, to the family, there's something bad out there, and I think it's time for us to pack and get out of this house. And the funny thing is, literally on the other side, in the other side, Texas, his mother, my great grandmother, decides she gets this sickening feeling that something's going to happen. So she sends his brother out, go check on your brother, or he's over here, like hours earlier. So it was weird. It was just the right timing. So my uncle he's almost to the house, and his car overheats. There's no water in his radiator. So he tells his wife and his kids, stay in the car. I'm gonna go into the well I saw not too far away. And this guy, he's a big guy too. He's like over 6 feet tall and a big Native American guy. So he goes to the well and he something walks up to him and is bigger than him, and he realizes this thing's not even human. And he sees the claws and their big red eyes, and he runs back to the car and told the family, go run to my brother's house as fast as you can. And he gets out his he got a shotgun and he got a big knife, and this creature has no fear of him. It comes up to him, and he shoots the thing like several times so big it runs out of bullets. Point blank range, and this creature doesn't barely budge at all. And the bullets are going right through it, or it's so solid it doesn't even feel anything. And the thing starts slashing at him, and he pulls out a big Bowie knife, try to slash it and hit him, but it doesn't make any effect to it. And he sees the family far away enough to the house. He starts running, and he makes it right in time where his brother's ready ready to pack up and leave. So he goes and they only have one vehicle, and again it's a pickup. So and there's like, so they decide to put all the men in the cab, and put all the women in the bed, but cover them up with a lot of blankets, a lot of stuff, in case wherever thing jumps in the back, had to go through all this furniture and clothes to get to the girls. So that's what they.
And there was an interesting note, I believe, where the creatures, the creature, when he ran, like they wouldn't cross the grass. It was like a threshold.
It wouldn't go. It always stayed within the dead area. It won't go. It didn't go into to the grass or the wood area. It would stay within the dead area, the sand area.
So they speed off in the truck, and they do get away. And that night, I believe they went to the landlord, and the next day, I guess they must have told them that they were moving out. They weren't going to stay there, because the next day they went back to collect their things.
Yeah, and my mother was with my grandfather, and they were going to pick up what stuff was there, and they get to the house. And the house was totally surrounded by, like, do you think, like SWAT team type people in military. So it was like that you realized they were bait all along to pull this creature out of its ground. And she was, they were there, and they were hearing that, the CB or wherever the radios were back in the day, that they had two police officers in the first floor of the house, and the house was totally destroyed. It had been ripped apart. The first was cut and slabbed. So they're going up to the second floor. Same thing. The whole floor is totally decimated. And the dogs started barking, on the third floor, which was the giant attic area.
So this was a K9 unit.
Yeah, K9. There was two officers and two German shepherds. Mom said, something like that. Little big dogs. And so the radio back. We're going into the attic. So they go. They send the two dogs up into the attic, and they hear this huge commotion. And they see up by one of the windows of the attic. They see a dog go through the window with no skin, totally ripped off his body, hit the ground. And the police officers, they heard the dogs, dying, and they decided to go up there and up in the attic to avenge their dogs. And they hear all kinds of gunfire up there. Then you see one of the police officers getting thrown out the window where he was dead already. He was all clawed up and he hit the ground. Then this when everybody saw this thing pulls his head. This is daytime. Pulls his head out of the window, and they can see big, huge red eyes and bluish skin, and it had like she said, I don't really, I can't remember seeing any kind of teeth but it was pretty much like just bizarre. Then the guys in the military guy said, open fire, and they hit it with machine gun fire, pistol fire. They hit the whole entire house, and the thing goes back to the house, and these guys throw either some kind of grenades or some kind of dynamite, but large enough to put it into the house, into the windows, all the windows. The house really exploded, and it's like the neighbors like cheering, they killed the creature. But somehow in the middle of the whole thing, they see that their footprints leaving the house, and they got how the hell did this thing go past all these guys and not be seen? Like it turned invisible and walked right past them all.
And there was they went into the house and they found the body of the other police officer.
Well, yeah, when they were going to the house when the wreckage of the house got blown up, they found the body. Only body found was the police officer and the other dead dog, but no other trace of the creature.
So it basically just disappeared. I mean, or like you said, it went invisible. I mean, obviously there was footprints going away from the place. So, I mean, it is a pretty fantastic story, especially you got the military there. and I mean, 2 cops get killed, 2 police dogs get killed. I mean, it's pretty amazing that it never hit the news. I mean, did your family ever go to a local paper or, you know what I mean? Like, how was it? Was it just covered up? Was it? How did that?
It was probably good. They back in the day, it was kind of taboo in like the family. It was like some things. It was taboo because it was too strange, and of course, you see military. And over the years, and they know the military. Covered up all kinds of stuff, and they were kind of pissed off that they were bait for this creature.
Yeah, I would imagine.
So,
I would imagine.
Yeah.
So what was it exactly that made them feel like they were bait? Because your grandfather took a job, and that's why he moved to this place, correct?
Well, I think the idea was that if the military showed up there like that, they must have known it was there. You know what I mean? Like, if they were on the scene that fast, and like, I get.
So Terry, are there any legends or stories in the from that area? Do you know that would indicate that people in that region have come across this thing before? You always, we get all the weirdness that happens on Skinwalker Ranch, and of course, it goes back. The reason it's called Skinwalker Ranch is because of the legends and stories associated with the area. Or was there anything tied, anything paranormal tied to the area before your family moved there?
No, that's the funny thing. My mother was trying to figure out that, because she told me before whenever I got to get the internet and to look up anything about it, the weird creatures like that, but I couldn't find nothing like it. And again, when this whole thing happened, afterwards, the creature just vanished. It's like like she said, it was like, to her, it felt like it was looking for something in the house or something under the house, a specific something, because it totally ignored them when they drove past it. I mean, it was literally feet away from the truck, and it totally didn't bat an eye at them. It was always focused on the house, like there was something in the house, like maybe something behind it, or mother thought it was either an alien or it was some kind of spirit that was trapped, or some in the creature, but its totem was in the house somewhere.
That's interesting.
And maybe when the house exploded, it freed the creature, or it got what it was looking for and left.
That is interesting. It was its totem or something like that.
Something tied. And there are quite a few stories in mythology that link certain supernatural creatures to certain objects, that they're somehow bound to these objects, and they either had to remain in the vicinity or it's something that they covet. So it's not an unusual archetype for a situation. Now, you describe the creature as being over 6 feet tall, having claws and blue skin, and red eyes. Now, was there anything particular about the facial features, I guess, that you said it looked strange, but is there any, a deeper description that we can get there?
Yeah, well, my mother said the face kind of, he's weird looking, both at a distance, but the eyes were very large and red, like huge, more than bigger, more like bug eyes, like huge, and they grew at night. So, and the face, it was almost like a bald-headed man, but except the eyes being so massive. And but again, in the skin, it was not like dark blue, but not bright blue. It was like a medium blue, but it shimmered in the light. So again, it was nothing she ever seen like that before. But yeah, it was like always weird. It's even to the day when the years you try to tell me look for any kind of legends or in that to describe it. There's nothing I can find that's remotely close to that.
It definitely does sound. It actually reminds me of stories of experiments that got loose. That's what it kind of reminds me of. And speaking of which, I mean, your mom is in a couple of these stories, and that's what I'd like to move to again because I find it interesting. Is almost like your family has I don't know, a connection to the paranormal or some kind of strangeness.
Yes.
So this other story has to do with your mom finding a monster in her wall. So this was a town near Wisconsin, and I remember you said that your mother couldn't remember the name of the town. So I guess this was after you said she had strokes.
Well, no, because they've been around so many towns. When they were migrating, they were going to almost like every place outside of the major cities, just the smaller towns where like all the farming communities. And then back in the 60s and the 50s, 60s, and early 70s, they wandered everywhere. Most every place they kind of stopped. Every other place you could say was something unusual. It's like they were drawn to places where there was something not natural there.
Okay.
It was bad. It was bad. Yeah. So this town, again, another farming community, big time, a lot of money. But this town was divided in half. Like you had the rich people who were selling wine and stuff, and the other side was more like the slum for all the workers. And when they were there, they noticed there were a couple of people in the paper missing, the disappearances. Well, no one ever thought about it. People disappear all the time, and so for they're going and doing their work and stuff. They worked in 3 different shifts, and one of her other cousins, he was on the hammock during the daytime, and he's kind of like drifting off to sleep, and he's by the tree, and he swears he sees pairs of eyes looking underneath the bottom part of the house, where the tube of the basement is, and and it disappeared. Like, okay, maybe I'm just dreaming, whatever. He mentions to my cousin, my mother, I mean. And so I was like, oh, he's probably dreaming. So one day, the mother's sleeping, and her bed gets pushed a little bit, like it gets moved while she was in it. She was like, did my bed just move? And so she was like, well, and she keeps pushing it back against the wall, and again the bed kind of moves a little bit. And like, this doesn't make any sense. Like the house haunts her or something. No, but she didn't put 2 and 2 together till later on. Now, I guess sometime during that week, there was one of these bars in downtown. This lady's walking from the bar, and she gets attacked by this guy who's super strong. He's dragging her away, and she's screaming. And the local thugs, decide to hear her screaming. They come and charge this guy. And they hit one guy grabs like a 2x4, hits the guy in the back, and it turns around and it just slashes the guy almost in half, disembowels him. And they realize that this is not a human. And then these guys start yelling and screaming for more help, and the thing let goes the woman and runs around the street, and more of the posse comes in and tries to chase this creature, and it disappears. Like, where the hell did the guy go? It doesn't make any sense. Then my mother hears the story, and she figures there's something going on in the house. Because now she put two together that they find people disappearing in locked rooms in their houses. Their bathroom, their bedroom, locked them inside. They vanished. So she figures out the wall is not a wall. So she goes tells her father. They comes in and they push against the wall and it moves, and they see there's an actual false wall, and there's a tunnel going through the ground. So they call the police. The police come and see that this is a man-made tunnel and it's a fake wall. So they go investigate the other people who disappeared in their bedrooms, and they find tunnels in their houses too. All these people who disappeared had tunnels going underground.
So there was like a network. There was a network of tunnels going to all the people's homes who have disappeared. Yeah.
So the people, told the cops to go down into the this catacomb area, And what comes out that they go down there and it's like miles of tunnels, but the tunnels are very old, and they find like almost like a house down there. Someone built an underground house, and they found old corpses like the previous people who lived there. Then they find we'll call the feet, the remain pit, where all the people who disappeared have been eaten, and their heads is still there. And they identified all the people who were missing because they found the heads, but the rest of their bodies have totally been devoured. And they can't but they can't find what ate the people. So the local mayor, and the police decide no, they can't find who's doing this. So they decided to blow up all the tunnels. And what tunnel they find in the houses, they fill with concrete. So, but they never found these individuals. They know that the tunnels end up getting to the mountain areas and hit it far from the city. So, but they never found these inhabitants of this underground lair.
So they caused controlled cave-ins for the tunnels and sealed up the holes with concrete. I believe that they found a hidden entrance by a hill, where the cops had found like these heads, but they also found a tunnel that led to an abandoned motel near the edge of town, which also led to the network of tunnels. And there was rumors going around that someone's pet experiment had gotten loose.
Yeah, there were all kinds of theories in that. But again, the tunnels state that there was somebody living there for over 100 years. So it could have been a family from, the thing, maybe they're inbred, or someone was doing something there for past 200 years, And whoever was taking charge, died of natural causes, and whoever was on there, we just kept on breeding uncontrollably. And they finally, came out to the surface for food, taking homeless people, anybody they could grab, and just do these cycles.
The story always reminded me of Pickman's model from H.P. Lovecraft, right? With the underground tunnels and the creatures that would come up. That's what it reminds me of. Of course, now this was another story that never made the news. In fact, it was covered up by the town.
Yeah, my aunt was my other aunt, one of the older aunts. She's the one who saw the guy in the motel. She's the one who told the police to go look over there. Cause she saw the guy by the motel and he suddenly disappeared. Because again, it's like an open plain. You can see someone walk far away, but he just vanished. And that's when they found that other tunnel there. But she was upset. She told me that she was upset because they found all these bodies, but nobody would print the news. It's like, murder suspect, escape, or they made some kind of weird story up to cover it up. But again, the area was full of a lot of money. They do a bunch of wine cellars. So bad publicity would made the business real bad.
It would have ruined the economy.
Cover up the whole thing.
So it basically it came down to ruining the economy. They just So again, that was another story that I found really interesting. But of course, we do have one here where you do play a small part in it yourself, which would be interesting to go into. And of course, I'm speaking of the Gettys house. And, and this happened, I believe you said 15 to 25 years ago, and it was a house on a street called Gettys Avenue. So what state and stuff was this in?
Okay, this is in my state of Florida, and it's actually north of my town I live in. It's called Northport. It's between Northport and Port Charlotte, Florida. Now that area has been back in the day, it's been known for a lot of witchcraft stuff. A lot of people, hoods and stuff hanging around the area, and at that time that house was used for like black magic rituals and stuff. And all kinds of weirdness was hanging around the whole area at that time.
So this was an abandoned, unfinished house, is the way that was described.
Yeah.
Okay, and people would use this as, I guess, their place of worship for like dark magic and things of that nature.
Yes, one of my close friends, when she's 9 years older than me. When she was a teenager, she went over there and she discovered the whole thing over there. There was the animal heads, and she found pictures of people that she actually knew were had been like a type of magic ritual to curse them. She was like, oh my gosh! But that at the time the town was real small. This whole area like maybe had 100,000 people. Everybody knew everybody, and she found a little concrete shed that was attached to the house. And inside of it, there was someone walled up a motorcycle inside of it. It was like, why would someone wall up a motorcycle in this abandoned house area? And it was like weird stuff going on. But she didn't really hang around too much. But there was a lot of legends about it. A lot of weird, people saying to see people with hoods and stuff in there. And I have another friend. When he's about 7 years older than me. When he was in high school, he had his friend who was always a party crasher. So one day he's driving around looking for he wanted to get drunk at his party, so he'd drive around in all these houses looking for parties to crash. He sees all these cars parked in this woods area, so he decided to go see what's going on. And he goes in there, goes close enough to the house to see all the people, this abandoned, unfinished house glowing with light. And he sees all these people with hoods and stuff. And he was like, holy crap, there's a bunch of witches and stuff in here, devil worshippers. And one of these guys in his hood sees him, and pulls out a machete and starts coming after him. So he jumps in his car and takes off. And he's like, he tells his buddy, what all the weird crap that's going on over there. I mean,
so these people that he's seen, they were dressed in black robes, hooded, and they were standing around a severed animal head, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, look, there was an altar there. He didn't get close enough to see it, but he saw that there was an altar, and they were doing all kinds of chanting and stuff like that. And he was like totally freaked out and ran.
So
but when the guy with the machete came after him.
So after this had happened, like his story kind of got around to school, I guess, and you had local kids would come in and kind of investigate this place, and and you had these friends, 4 of them, that decide this would be a good place to play laser tag.
Yes, there was a couple years, I think, a couple years after that whole event, and so they're playing laser tag, in this very large house, running around. And my friend's like, he starts noticing this. He swears that there were like 5 people there playing with him, including himself. But there should be only 4. Then he started noticing, where's the rest of the guys? He's looking around, and he can't see where the hell these guys are. So he sees like a head and like one of the empty windows areas. And he realizes, like, oh, maybe there's something going on. Maybe that's your guy. So he jumps out, and he shines a light at this individual. And, hey, can you guys comment on my cell phone? This house phone's about to die.
Yeah, I could do that. Just hang on. Back to our story. So, to get back to where we were, you had 4 friends who were playing laser tag. And they start to notice, or one of them starts to notice, that it seems like they have a 5th player in the game. And his gear's not lighting up. When he's been shot several times, his gear's not working. And, it starts to become apparent that this 5th player, they don't know who it is. So they discover at some point that they can't even find the other team that they're playing against. And so they go out to look for them. And your friend has a flashlight, and he's shining it into the woods nearby when he finds this large tree stump, on top of which is sitting a strange little old man.
Yeah, so he's like, okay. So, and this guy turns around, and he is not human. He said it looks like a giant lemur monkey. all he could describe. It had his fingers in his mouth, and then almost like he's moved off a little bit, and suddenly it vanished. So he's like by himself, and like, oh my God. So he goes to the car, and he sees his other three teammates in the car huddled together, all scared out of their minds. And then they decided to drive off and not go back there ever again.
Now that this creature, it was detailed as having the inside of its mouth was black, as was its
face. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No, not the face. It had a gray body, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
and his hands was black, and the inside of his mouth was black. And he was playing with his teeth when his fingers were in his mouth, or something like that.
Yes.
So your friend who runs into this thing, he turns to yell to his friends, like this crazy thing is here, and when he turns back, it's gone. So he runs back to the car, and there's his three friends, like you said, huddled, terrified in the car. And at some point, after this had happened, you and one of the people, I guess, one of the witnesses to this place, go out to search the area, only to find that this house is gone.
Yeah, that was only a couple of years ago. It was like I believe 3 years ago. Me and my the previous my female friend who was there the first time, who was the one who discovered the motorcycle on the altar. We walked to the entire block in the woods looking for the remains of his house, and there's nothing, not even a trace of a house. It was like if someone just came and scooped up the entire house and brick by brick, and it totally vanished. And I even went to the local the tax people and land people to look up who owned the property, and it said there was never a house, any kind of permits or any kind of house ever built in the area. So it never existed on paper as well.
And that story, actually, I don't know if any of you have watched this. There's a show like Celebrity Ghost Stories, and I know people are going to have kind of strong opinions on the idea that, every celebrity seems to have a ghost story. But there was one where Marilyn Manson was on there, and it was a similar thing where, like, there was this place he went to, and they found this book. Actually, I think it was, he was describing it as a Necronomicon. But anyway, long story short, a similar thing happened where when he went back to find this place, it wasn't there. And there are a couple of stories where, people have been inside of, a building or a house that, was strange and had left, for some reason, like usually being chased out of there by something or something terrifying, only to come back at a later date and find that it's gone. And I always found...
Like the gateways to Untersberg.
Like the gateways to Untersberg. And I always found that those ideas to be pretty interesting, that a place could manifest itself and you could go in there and, it's really...
Well, and, that's a pretty common thing in legends and lore all throughout history. You have castles and gateways and doorways and caves that, are only accessible from this world at certain times of the year or under certain conditions. Once certain rituals have taken place, or around certain solstices, or even dates.
If we're talking rituals, we're talking black hooded people doing rituals, like exactly. Regularly at this place. Perhaps manifesting the place in itself. The other interesting thing that you said, Terry, was that this had been owned. This there was patches of this place in town like that were owned by people from out of town, possibly even out of country. So it's possible that they know what it is, or you know what I mean. It could be an experiment that they're doing. It's not taxed. It's for all intents and purposes hidden. As far as the government and everything is concerned. So that in itself is mysterious.
Well, I mean, and if anything we could take away from the collection of Terry's stories tonight is when it comes to paranormal stuff, don't trust what the government's telling you.
And if there's anything else that we can, yeah, it's almost all covered up. The other thing that we can take from it is that Terry, your family's had an interesting, an interesting line of events.
Oh yeah.
Connected as far as the paranormal is concerned,
Which is also another common. It's somewhat of a common thing to get from Native American peoples.
It is actually some of the most interesting stories comes from Native American peoples, and maybe it's got something to do with the fact that, maybe they. I mean, would you say that your family keeps its culture more active? Because I mean, I know from being just what I call a regular, white Canadian. There is no culture, like there really isn't anything kept within our families, like traditions, or do you know what I mean? Like it's just all TV and possessions and work. That's
well, no, years ago it was like that, but in our family it's kind of really divided. Well, most of the key players are dead now, and the other members are trying to forget the what happened in the past, because they believe it's kind of, if you remember, it's going to bring bad luck to you or bad omen to you in your future. Because I've gotten kind of threats from my family members about posting my stories and stuff, and it was like, I do it, like I told you before, I do it because it's for the future, for those who will come after us. So, if weird stuff that happens to them, they'll know where it came from. I'm trying to keep up the history for it all lost.
Yeah, and I would agree to that, because I know that a lot of Native American cultures are, I mean, they want to keep things within their culture, and I can understand that too, but I mean, the truth is it is important for. I mean, there's peoples of all makes and kinds that have similar experiences, and it does help everybody as a whole, I think, to share their experiences.
Well, this is the paranormal is something that seems to transcend all race and religion, and it affects people whether they're smart or they're stupid or they're straight or they're gay. Like there doesn't seem to be any, like there's no focus, right? It's everybody. It's absolutely everybody. It's a ubiquitous phenomenon, and we have a real opportunity in this day and age to chronicle this kind of stuff. And I mean, you see time and time again these events that happen, and what do we hear a lot from people is that this strange paranormal event happened, and I seem to forget about it, even almost in a supernatural way. They lose their memory, and on top of that, people just don't want to remember it, and they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to think about it, and here we are as a race, thousands of years living in civilization, and the fringes of our society recording these kinds of weird phenomenon. And now in our culture, collectively, at least in North America, we don't have any cultural defense or knowledge. And I guess the best thing that any of us can do is kind of come around the electronic campfire that is the internet, and tell our stories to one another, and try to listen and make sense of it, because it in truth it's a phenomenon that affects the entire human race.
Yeah, well, whereas distance separates us all, the internet brings us all together, right? So even when you have rare things such as this to happen, the smaller group of people who have had it can actually find each other on the internet. And misery loves company, and it's the only way that we're really going to solve this, because let's face it, if you're not someone who's had any experiences, you might not even be that interested in it. right? So it's usually the people who's been impacted by it in some way, shape, form, or another that research this material. So with that said, Terry, is there any other stories that you have or things that you wish to share?
I mean, I have all kinds of stories, but no, for me, my first paranormal event was probably so long ago that I was actually a child. The mother had to tell me the story that is my invisible friend. Everybody had you're a kid. Everybody had an invisible friend. So my mother was telling me that this invisible friend was very unique because he could kind of manifest himself into a solid-like type thing, but he was invisible. When I was a kid, my mother told me I always had this fight with this invisible kid or thing, wherever, and it would always get really rough for me, and then mother would yell at it and it would stop. And then she would, when she would go out buy toys for me, she would buy 2 toys. And she would place one toy for me, give me, and then place another one on a table or something, and then it would vanish. When no one's looking, it would disappear. Even when I'm not in the room, it would vanish. And it happened all the time. And then one day my dad was, I don't remember, I think I was getting wrestling with it, and it hurt me, and my dad said something, and it hit him. It physically hit him. So he knew it wasn't make-believe. And I can't remember what I wrote, but I remember the mother saying, you're not allowed in the house again, or you can go away. And it never did. It never came back. And that was my first time in kind of supernatural experience. And the second one I remember was I kind of remember this one, is you probably read the story. It's the snake shaman story.
The shaman story. Is this one that you submitted to the site?
I don't know. I might put it under I lived in the haunted land for 16 years, something like that. Like I'll put. When I was born, I lived in this property, this plantation, and it was totally like spook central. Like it's like going to the Twilight Zone. Every kind of weird thing happened in there, from giant snakes, like anaconda type stuff, to weird shadow people and shadow beasts. But the typical, not too far from there, the werewolf. Trust me, and weird critters that they just biologically live in that field. And my dad would take one or two guys who took care of the property at the night, the huge property. And one day my dad and my aunt, Becky, were walking through the area, and they see this weird light coming from a distance. And you come up to it, and it's a rattlesnake. It's glowing, getting up a weird glow. Then it vanishes and leaves a trail of rusty nickels and dimes. And it's like, okay, it's like, this is kind of weird.
That is strange.
Yeah?
It left a trail of rusted nickels and dimes?
Yeah, it was in the form of it. When it got close to the snake, it disappeared and left the form of itself and old rusty nickels and dimes at first.
That is strange. Okay, go on.
And then again, the next night, it would do this a couple of nights in a row. It would leave money where it was. But over the couple of days, the money started getting newer, from getting rusty to newer shiny nickels, dimes, and quarters. Then it became dollars. And it was, why would this spirit of this rattlesnake leave money behind? And so my dad, he's talking to some old Puerto Rican on a job site, and he said, "Oh no, don't take the money. It's a trap. It's a evil shaman who's trying to buy your soul. He get all the money that you collect from the snake, put it in a jar and seal it, and throw it into the nearest body of water you can find, which is right by my house. So there's a man-made pond, a large one, full of alligators." So they did, and they threw it into the phone. I'm going to ahead myself. So they stopped going to see the snake every night. So I remember this part. I do remember. So I'm sitting there in the living room, and then in the middle of the night, there's a tap on the door of the trailer. There's really knocking, like, and my father and my aunt and mother look at each other like, who's going to be on the property this night? It isn't the boss. We saw no headlights. We're in the property, we're from the main road. So it's getting louder. So my aunt sticks her head down and looks through the window, and they see the rattlesnake had gone up to the front door and is actually hitting the door with his head, knocking, trying to get their attention. So they refuse to go out there. So the next day, they got all the money, and they go throw it in the middle of the pond, and it's getting dusk, and they throw it by the pond, and this weird light comes out of the water. And the Puerto Rican said the curse was broken because they threw the money back, or they threw it away into the pond. But that day, the next day, my dad's friend died.
Really?
And my dad was very upset seeing it was the curse of the snake.
Really? So I guess he must have collected some of the money, or...
Well, no.
Or the shaman wasn't too happy he was giving away the secrets.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, it was punishment for someone had to die for the money. So it was really too deep into the spell.
Well, that is a really interesting story. You're an interesting man, Terry.
Well, that property it was a really bad mojo when they moved there because, again, I hope the landowner didn't say it, but he's the original landowner. It was, I guess, owned back during the Civil War, so it's a pretty old plantation. When my dad was digging up the area, he found corpses of you think either Native Americans or black slaves, all piled up in the woods. So he was told to go dump it into these man-made ponds. Get rid of all these bodies. So that was so that again that was the sign of being the bad area, and all kinds of weirdness was starting to happen. There was a time where people used to drop off their dogs, to abandoned animals and stuff. So the forest plantation would be covering dogs and stuff. Then they start disappearing, and it turns out there's a giant anaconda in one of the man-made ponds eating the alligators and the dogs.
Wow.
Which kind of funny. My mother ran into it because she was on her break. She was sitting. My mother was only like a 5 foot person. She's 5 foot, probably like 130 pounds. And she was on her break, and she was sitting on this log, and she put her food next to her, and one was a large apple. So she went and get her apple, and it's gone. And she turns around fully, and this big snake with its apple stuck in its mouth. So I guess it was aiming for her hand and got the apple instead.
Wow.
And so she runs to go tell the foreman, the snakes, the giant snakes there, and so they went to try to kill it, but it was gone already. And the only reason why they figured it didn't go deeper into the plantation, and back in the day they were using DDT in the area. So it knew what parts of the field not to go to, but the high poison. But the last time we saw it was when again she was with the foreman driving down these side roads, and he hit a speed bump in the middle of the woods, And it turned out it was a snake laying on the road. It was big enough to lift up the truck a little bit, the little Toyota. And if you see rising in pain, and that was the last time they ever saw it. The thing is, maybe they accidentally killed it and ran over it.
Wow. That really, no, you never did submit that story, but I gotta say, I'm glad I heard it. It's very, very cool.
Oh, yeah. And my father wasn't really big into supernatural stuff, but he tried to avoid it when possible. At nighttime, he would go spray the flowers on the plantation with insecticide. So he'd be on this 8-foot, 10-foot tractor, with the water tank on it. And once in a while, he'll see this fog going through the flowers. I mean, this is like when there should be no fog at all. There's only a large patch of it. And when we were walking, we were going through the fields, and he knew that was not a natural event. But he never told anybody about it. To one day, I think it was like 13, 14 years old. Again, we hear a knock on the front door. So I open the front door, and there's a thick fog, so thick it's like cutting through milk, you know. So maybe my dad was in the back of the house. He was no one in the front. So I went to the back of the trailer, and it's clear as day, night sky and everything. And it was like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah.
So when my dad gets home, and we tell him the story, he gets mad, and he tells us, "No, don't ever do that ever again. You look through the window before you open the door. You see that fog, don't open the door for nothing." Well, it turned out to be, he told my mother later that he sees this weird humanoid shape in the fog. There's something in the fog walking in the fog. And it never bothered him because he was always on top of that tractor. And if he got close, he was spraying with the insecticide, the nozzle gun. But that was one thing he was told, never, if you see that fog, go get away from it as soon as possible. And there's something in the fog walking.
Wow.
Yeah, that's actually, I believe it's I know it's European, but there's I believe it might even be a Scottish myth about, a thick fog, a mystical fog that will just come up out of nowhere, and it can, literally, it has literally tried to pull people off of cliffs, and it will just engulf people, and then they disappear forever. That's it's another archetypal story that you hear every now and then, and especially there's several European myths surrounding that. It's very interesting.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
Well, with all that having been said, we do have to cut this episode here. But Terry, I want to say that, again, not only were the story, I knew what stories we were initially going to cover, and I already knew they were interesting, and I was, I'm very happy to bring it to the podcast to get those fans to hear it, ones who might not read it on our site. But the news stories that I haven't heard before also, didn't disappoint. Very, very, very interesting stories. So I want to thank you for coming on to the show and sharing it. And for everybody else out there who's listening, I hope that you enjoyed them. And if you yourself have any stories on the paranormal, or if you have pictures or video, submit them to us at effedupstories.com. That's EFFEDUPSTORIES.com. And we'll get it on the website and possibly in a podcast. And with that having been said, this is Will Pender signing off.
Good night, everybody. Thank you very much. Ryan Sharp. Good night.